The Rant. Meet Christina and Eric. What grinds their gears? The experts in the fields of architectural design, pre-construction, construction management, fine cabinetry. The Rant, a podcast by One York Company.
Clap.
Choose one of those. It'll work. All right.
And go.
I have no idea what episode we're on, but I think this is like the fifth one or sixth one. Something like that.
I don't know.
That's how much we're prepared for this.
I have no sense of time. Every day just blurs together.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
I'm like, July what?
July. Someone said it's 5.5 weeks until Christmas or
Months.
months, and I was just about to scream. I was like, I can't deal with that.
I got really sad the other day when I thought about it. Like 12 weeks of summer. Like whenever it's like, oh, summer. I have all these plans. Do you have any plans for summer? So I'm like, summer's half over, motherfucker.
Yeah,
Like,
I know. And now it's like, what do you? Yeah. Emery's got this list of like, oh, I want to go strawberry picking. I'm like, missed that. I'm like, want to go to the island? Want to go to like Canada's Wonderland? And I'm like, I don't want to do any of those things, but I'll come and I'll entertain them. Like Canada's Wonderland to me is like purgatory. Like I don't want to go there ever. It's just like long lines of
I don't
expensive
mind.
things.
Like if you go during the week and
Sure.
I mean, okay, so you have 4 kids under 8 or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's different.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see.
I'd rather dig my own eyes out than
Yeah,
do that.
it's a logistical nightmare.
With my kids at the age that they're at, like 15, she doesn't even want to be with me for more than 12 minutes. So
Yeah, it's way more
I'll
fun.
go into the park. I'll be like, okay, turn your find my phone on so I know where the hell you are, and I'll see you in 6 hours.
See you later. Bye.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So, what do you want to talk about? On the news this week, 5% interest rate from the Bank of Canada. So, I was watching the news, and watching the news for me is like I really enjoy it. When 6 o'clock rolls around, the CTV news, and like they opened up the news with this comment, and it was like, Bank of Canada raises the key interest rate to 5%. If you're thinking of buying a car or doing a renovation, think again.
Thought it was buying a house,
What did I say?
buying a car.
I said buying a car, doing a renovation. That's what they said. So if I said something different earlier than I was...
Earlier you said buying a house.
Well, those things are synonymous. Anyways, you're ruining my story. The idea here is that's what they said. And in my mind's eye, like, actually I yelled at it. I'm like, really? You fucking said that? You said renovation? Like, you said those things specifically? Like, I'm sure that, like, Volkswagen and, like, Ford, they can suck it up, right? But it's like, for, like, the renovation companies and the construction companies out there, thinking again, and it's a caveat though. This is my point on that entire thing, is that when you have the higher interest rates, which we're now in, it's not that the renovation industry stops, it's that actually the larger scale construction, residential construction slows down. So less people are taking on, like, let me just, start with a brand new foundation and dig that out, right? More $1 million plus renovations slow down. But there is still an influx of more projects that are about using the space you have better, right? More cabinetry jobs come along, more smaller renovations, interior space you already have. Those kind of kick up a little bit because people still need more functional space. They just need to approach it in a different way. So they're disincentivized to take on...
De-incentivized.
Disincentivized.
Disincentivized?
Disincentivized?
That's a Googleable offense.
Do
right
it.
there.
Can you do it? I don't even know how to spell it.
Hey Google. Hey Siri. Fucking Apple. Never mind. We'll figure it out later. We'll add it in the comments.
I think it's disincentivized.
I you know what? I need to know enough that I'm prepared to.
I'll ramble on a little bit more until you come on to that.
Yeah.
My point around this is that the key interest rate or the overnight rate between the Bank of Canada and the banks is 5%. So the lending rate that we have for mortgages and other things like construction loans, that in turn is more expensive. So the idea here is that less people will pursue larger renovations. They're trying to cool things off. It's a monetary policy tactic to make inflation go down. Okay, that's really, really boring. At the end of the day here, my point is saying that like when that happens, people are not going to take on huge projects. We're talking about the average home buyer looking to buy a house is between $1.5 million and like around that price point. Less big renovations on those projects and more conservative renovations, which means for us actually that we can take on more cabinetry work.
Yeah, it's a word.
Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. It's a word.
Oh, can we just play that back?
It doesn't happen often. So, yes, you were right.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. That's our one occurrence for 2023.
Yeah, I'm gonna soak that in. It's on camera too. It's so good. I'm gonna play that back.
Right.
Ah, yes, there it is.
Oh, it's Friday. Can
Yeah.
you tell?
Oh yeah.
That was a Friday answer.
Yeah, fuck it Fridays. The fuck it set in around
Oh,
like 10
it's
o'clock.
just fuck it Fridays? Because I thought that started on Mondays, where I'm just like, you know what? My 11 a.m., I'm like, fuck it.
It's a daily occurrence. It just kicks in at different points in the day. On Friday, it's
a
all
higher
day.
degree of no fucks.
Yeah, if you're putting it in your calendar, it's an all-day event.
Yeah.
Like, click it over.
There are Monday answers and there are Friday answers. On
Sure.
a Monday, if you ask me something, I will give you a very calculated, very thorough answer.
Mm-hmm.
On a Friday, you may get, sure. Okay.
That's how I know you're very mad at me. When you agree and it's like terse, that's how I know that you're upset. And it's funny because our last episode was about, the relationships you have when you try to build something. My strategy in building our new showroom, Woodbine and Danforth, you can look it up, was essentially let Christina make all the decisions. Because
really
I was
good
like, I'm not going to die on that hill. You know what? And the thing is, it's like you will come up with ideas that are better than mine. I will have key inputs that may or may not be listened to, but at the end of the day, I got to weigh in, and it worked. And our showroom's beautiful. But I can really put speaking of cabinetry, I can really kibosh your day when we made new partnerships with the Murphy Bed Company. By the way, Murphy Beds are real and they're amazing and they're a great way to use space. And that's right into that 5% interest rate conversation I just had. And so now I have to introduce this whole other element to our showroom last minute here, and Christina and I are at ends with each other.
This is the fucking vibe all over again.
What's the vibe?
What's the vibe? Eric
my God,
moved
'cause
a
the vibe
giant
isn't the-
fucking interactive TV screen right in the middle of the showroom. The showroom is carefully calculated, and we could have factored anything in the
Carefully
8 months
calculated.
that we were doing it. But after we move in, he's like, let me put this big motherfucking TV in the middle with blue legs that don't match anything.
Yeah.
And it just sits there. And he's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to use this all the time. He's used it once in the last 3 weeks.
I used it yesterday,
Yes, that was the once in the last 3 weeks.
just like me being right. Yeah.
So it's a small version of the giant TV we have on the opposite wall.
It's not just a TV; it's an interactive board where you can write on it.
Yes,
and
you,
you can
need to interact with it for it to be useful.
Yes, I guess that's right.
Anyway.
Anyways.
Back to the Murphy bed. We're
Yeah.
now trying to facilitate a location for the Murphy bed without disrupting all of the planning that has gone into the development of this showroom.
It's true. We'll figure it out. Anyways, yeah. So let's talk about that. What are the other impacts of having the interest rate go up, from your opinion? Give me something.
No, I think the people who were not heavily reliant on financing to do what they were planning to do are going to continue to move forward. They're going to do what they're going to do because they have the resources to do it. I think that the people who are risk adverse are going to be a little shell-shocked and say, you know what, now's not the right time. If they were on the fence before, I think they're definitely taking a step back and they're saying, we're going to be cautious about this. We're playing it safe. And then I think there's the people who definitely are at the threshold where they have to do something. And so I think lesser renovations within a more comfortable threshold of investment is where we're going to see a big shift. So yeah, I think that, for some people and the projects that we have, they're certainly moving forward because they're in it. And
It doesn't really affect our demographic personally, but it does affect the renovation market. For first-time home buyers who also want a renovation, this is going to affect you.
Yeah, it's
right?
one of those things you're buying the house or you're renovating, or you're forced to choose one or the other. You're not getting to have your cake and eat it too, unfortunately.
Right.
And so I think that there's balance to be found there. I think that people who undertake, I think we're going to see more main floor renos, wherever their communal space is. I think those things are going to get revamped in a lesser renovation. I think it's going to be a lot more, we're not going to take on our $700,000 renovation right now, but we're comfortable with what we've got already, to say we're going to commit to, $250. We'll do main floor and bits of the other pieces, or brand new kitchen, or overhaul the basement, whatever those growth needs might be for the immediate future, I think are going to be addressed by people, which is great. Because I mean, we offer stuff that is across the board. Like while we're centralized and focused on larger renovations with the cabinetry stream and the Murphy beds, we're able to we're able to cater to that other market, which I don't know would have been as strong for us if things weren't in this current situation.
It's a lot of takeaways. I think that you said was the first time home buyers. Those are the people that are going to get affected. Because like if they're trying to buy a house for the first time and the interest rates are high and you're getting your first mortgage, like that's tough, right? Because a lot of our clients essentially, or a lot of people when they afford a renovation, especially a substantial renovation, the story is often, we bought the house 10 years ago in Toronto, but if you bought a house 10 years ago in Toronto, like
it has equity in it.
Oh, it's
like there's
tons.
not, it's
like
not
ridiculous. Like let's put it this way. I bought my house 6 years ago for half the price it currently is. 6 years ago, right? That's insane. But that's Toronto. So it's like if you look at people with their second house, like they're thinking of moving to a new home, like selling the house they currently have and buying a new house in Toronto, or taking out a big HELOC, a home equity line of credit on that house, getting it reappraised and taking out the HELOC and financing the renovation. The trick on that is every HELOC is at a variable rate, so that affects the amount that you have. Usually it's your base rate, that 5% plus whatever the bank is then charging you on top of that. And so the more you borrow, the more you owe, and it's, variable. So if it keeps going up, then you're going to keep paying interest rates. That being said, those people who are on their second renovation, we're not going to see that. Those people be affected as much because the show must go on. People still need new space.
I think that we're also going to see an influx in multi-res projects. I think that we're going to see a lot more fourplexes because if money is costing more to borrow, then they've got to make it worthwhile, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of second suites happen as renovations so that they can supplement their income or their mortgage or whatever that is as they're having to renew. That's going to become more critical than it was in the past. And I think that with the bylaws and all of that stuff changing around fourplexes and the multi-res and making that easier, I think that people who are even potentially getting into it for the first time or have recently offloaded their first home might look into things like that where they can, invest in having multiple streams of revenue from one central piece.
Yeah,
so.
And the triplex is the magic balance. Like when you do 4 units, it becomes a bit more challenging, like from like a Toronto Hydro perspective and like the amperage coming into the house. Like we're doing this for one of our fourplexes right now. It becomes like there are cost benefits for your mechanical systems coming into the house. But if you are coming from, especially people like think about this. This is a story I oftentimes think about. Like our generation essentially knows how to live in 1,000 square feet or less. Like you probably bought or owned a condo downtown at some point or another and lived there, likely with or without kids or one kid for a little while, right? But you know how to live in a small space. Then you look at, I want to own a property in Toronto. Well, that's difficult. So how are you going to do that? So you buy a house that's large enough with a building envelope that you can turn into a triplex, has 3 levels. You rent 2, you live in 1, you effectively live in the same space, but then you have somebody else pay your mortgage. That's the game plan. Like that's really the game plan for I think most people. Yeah. And now with the new zoning bylaws, they're coming in. So like triplexes are relatively easy to convert to. And there's companies that like us that know how to do that with experience now, and like we can really show you what the path is and the timeline and the budget around it.
It's not nearly as convoluted as it used to be. Like if you've done now that you've got a few under your belt, it's like it's just the same as building another house for us because it's like all of the same factors, all of the same.
Sure.
You never really get outside of the constraints of what is consistent in that arena.
But what's challenging is like, the banks don't necessarily recognize the difference between legal conforming and legal non-conforming, which is a whole other argument, right? Legal conforming being that you actually have fire separations and different mechanical systems and temperature control between units and like, fire collars on your plumbing and like all of those things. And legal non-conforming where you have 2 kitchens and 2 space. Or you don't, right? Exactly. And it's like all
none of those things exist.
And then all of a sudden
those things exist.
And then you hear in the news every once in a while like a house burnt down and it's like, oh, someone died in a basement apartment. And you're like, well, yeah.
Legal non-conforming.
Legal non-conforming. There you go. It's like, anyways, 5%. So you're going to see a lot more people who are going to do renovations, supplement what the cost of their mortgage is by, having that extra income. Because like it's crazy. If you think about like $1 million mortgage, I saw it on the stats on the news were that the average purchase price for a house was around 1.2 million. And then with that, then your mortgage payments are like, $6,500 a month, right? But if you rent your basement, and then it's like, then you rent your basement, you get $2,000 a month for your basement. Then you rent the main floor, and then you get another $2,000 for that. Then all of a sudden, you live on the middle floor, and it's like there's $2,000 for your rent. But like obviously you're gonna have to go through a renovation to do that. So like bump all that shit up by a bit. But then all of a sudden then it kind of makes sense. But then layer in property taxes and what have you.
But then you're only people are going to be forced to into the situation where you're only going to get what you want for your main space by adding that secondary revenue stream, right? So it's like it's going to be a caveat to either you don't do your renovation now and you wait, or you do it now and understand that the offshoot of that is essentially that you've got to create a secondary space to be supplemental income so that you can then continue to enjoy your new space in the way that you want to do it, right? So
and that's another interesting approach with the whole interest rates are now at 5%. Maybe I'm not going to be able to do my whole reno thing. Is renovate the top 2 floors of your house and then leave your basement unfinished. Or
I don't know why that's such a fucking impasse for people. It's a basement, for Christ's sake. Like, unless you're a hobbit or a fucking troll living under the bridge, like, what is so bad about the basement? Like, why can we not leave basements for a later date? Like, why is it irreconcilable to so many people that you could have this space that like your kids can't play down there unless it's like perfectly finished? Maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe because like,
unfinished basements to me are like that's where you go play ball hockey and like you know
unfinished basements meant you could have a friggin' tennis game in the basement.
Absolutely.
Nobody was yelling at you because nothing got broken because nobody cared. It was like
I distinctly remember
space.
throwing darts in my unfinished basement like against the wall, like into a piece of plywood because
God,
like just
or the scooters or like learning to like riding your bike in the winter. And I guess maybe in these footprints that's not as big of a deal.
Well, you're the one who grew up on a farm. Basically.
It's not a farm. It was 20 acres. It was
That's
not a
a
farm.
farm.
It's not.
That's
by
Toronto
no
standards.
animals aside from potentially my brother, but you know.
I almost apologized to him by name.
No. I don't know what that is all about. But you know what the other part is? The shitty part that's going to come out of this is with money being so expensive to borrow, people are going to be so challenging to work with on a client thing because it's suddenly become more emotional. You've got more skin in the game and it's like it's a higher risk thing and anxiety will peak. And therefore, I feel like the experiences with which we will go through on this roller coaster of construction.
But it happens now. I mean, even the last 8 months, it's like as the interest rates have been creeping up, everyone who's been in construction is getting more and more
asshole-ish.
No, I can't find the right word.
Everybody's a dick.
No,
that's what's happening.
It's not that they're a dick. It's that the circumstances are challenging, and so their behavior is a reflection of that. And you're right.
They have no emotional regulation.
But at the end of the day, the truth is that you have to be able to. Once again, this is the same fucking thing that I say every single time. It's like with interest rates going up and the cost of borrowing money to be higher, the importance of getting it right the first time is paramount. Right? Like if you didn't have money to waste in the first place, and now with the fact that with the clock
you're
is
gonna want to
ticking,
make that experience enjoyable,
right? No, but like you got to get through it quickly. And so all we've ever said is that if it's an expensive endeavor that you're thinking of taking on, then you have to consider the amount of planning against
but even that doesn't guarantee it. Like, yes, the goal is to get through it quickly. Be organized. Have your plans. Like
no change orders. Run through it. Like make all your decisions before you need to go through it.
But that doesn't mean it will go flawlessly.
No.
Like attempting to go as fast as you can is one thing, but it's an attempt. It's not a concrete thing. It's the trades are sometimes inflexible and everybody's strapped for cash. The one thing that I will say that I think will be a benefit to offset people's sort of anxiety is that we'll have more availability to trades.
Yes.
Because if less projects are going on, all of a sudden people are less busy, which means you have the ability to create relationships with people who were always too busy to sort of stretch outside of whatever their core group of builders was or something like that. So I think that you'll see
but even on the
wider
larger
network.
Yes, but on the larger scale, it's like the majority of the construction industry and the people that I work with and the tradespeople, like they're not doing renovations. They're working outside the city and building like huge swaths of new houses, like hundreds and thousands at a time. And so those large builders, like the top 10 large builders in Ontario, are taking on those new constructions and they employ a great number of people. But if they don't push send on that next phase of hundreds of homes, then it means that an entire group of like framers or MEP contractors or whatever are not getting those contracts. And then so we get this trickle down effect of all of a sudden there are people now willing to do renovation work in the city of Toronto, which is not as enjoyable for them technically to do because like there's all kinds of complications of working in Toronto, but now they're available to do work, which then drops the cost for us to hire a carpenter for a day or what have you. So it's interesting in that way. But then what kills me is that like, okay, great. Now what we're saying is, okay, great. We're not building that next generation or that next phase of homes in the middle of a green field somewhere. Okay, great. Now there's less supply of homes, right? What's going to happen when you have less supply of homes? It's like you're going to have the homes that you do have, they're going to start going up because you have no housing stock, right?
Yeah, but then that's just going to perpetuate the cycle of people creating densification within the pieces of land they already have, right?
Yeah, and that's
so,
gentle density housing. If you look at what's happening in the city of Toronto and approving, so like triplexes are now, you can go for them, no problem. Fourplexes, yep. Laneway suites, yep. Garden suites, yep.
Gentle density.
That's what gentle density housing is. And missing middle, gentle density housing.
Excuse me, I actually don't want it soft. I don't want it hard. I would like the gentle density, please.
Name my sex tape. Gentle density, please. set phaser to stun.
Dial it down. I only got like 20% today, so it's going to be a gentle density day. Okay?
Don't make it hurt. Oh, man. Okay.
Back to our regular scheduled programming.
I can't recover for that.
And that's it. That's the rant.
That's how we ended it. We're just like, and that's what 5% interest rates mean to me. It's like,
that's how interested I am.
don't make it hurt. Okay. Yeah. So
This should be called. This episode should be called "Don't Make It Hurt."
Yes. 5%. Don't make it hurt. That's scary. That's a scary proposition. Oh my God. This is terrible. I can't gonna stop thinking about these things. Okay. So, I mean, my takeaways so far are the interest rates are rising. Who's that going to affect? First time home buyers the most. People who've been sitting on a home and living in it and paying their mortgage for 10 years in the city of Toronto. It's probably doubled, tripled, quadrupled in value. Those people aren't going to be affected. But it's not. Everyone differently. It's really going to affect some people. People who have lower income, that's going to affect you. People who are trying to... Don't tap the mic. That's clearly going to fuck the show up. If you hear that random fingernail tap, it's like Freddy Krueger just hit the mic with her fingernails. Those things are scary. Okay, so first-time home buyers for sure, lower income people for sure. People who are looking to renovate their home, they got to be a bit more savvy. Like the way to approach this would be like, don't finish an aspect of your home. Don't do all the cabinetry at once. Do your media room separately. Do the built-in separately.
People don't like to be say no.
People don't like saying no. But that's why we got to coach them and help them, because it's not that we're not saying no forever. We're just saying no, not right now. Design.
It's not a no. It's a not right now.
Yeah, that's like the classic parenting tactic. That maybe. It's like you don't say yes. You say maybe. Well, we'll see. Yeah, that's an option potentially, right? You say what you want to hear, and then you put the comma in there, and you say
park that, and we're gonna come back to this
later. Put a pin in it. Yeah,
put a pin in it.
Yeah, it's good. It's always there later, right?
I'm better at pulling the pin than putting the pin in.
Yeah, you're certainly a hand grenade. For sure. Lost the pin. Fucking buried, jump on it. Fuck. Yeah, you're so spicy. This is a good rant because you're like, fucking clients not just so angry. It's not their fault the interest rates are rising. Of course they're stressed. Of course they are. I'd be stressed too. I'm stressed.
I cannot handle more emotional unregulation.
Man. But it's true though. I mean, it's a very challenging.
For this.
None of us are. Think about like the trauma of the last 3 years of what everyone's gone through. It's like, hey, by the way, global pandemic. Hey, money's free. Fucking spend all you like. By the way, money's not free. You owe me everything back right now.
Honestly, like, let's think about the trauma that we go through.
Who, us?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like,
we're going to do this.
If you think everybody else goes through stuff, imagine being the fucking center of that bullseye for everybody that you're working with, because nobody knows where to direct that. So,
it's true though.
It's just as traumatic for us. Like, we're just people too.
Yes.
And we have shit going on personally. And, all the things in our worlds get challenging at times too. But, nobody's overly receptive to that.
No. That's okay. That's okay. 5% once again. What else is going to happen there? I don't even know if it's going to stop. How much longer is this going to go on for? Is really the question. Are we going to like go to the like think about this. In the 80s, is it 20%? 20%. Like what? Like that? I can't. That's unfathomable.
I feel like there's a history lesson here, though. You know, like
just ebb and flow to this.
Yeah,
right?
You know, we don't let it get to a certain point.
Right.
At some point, you would hope humanity learns from their mistakes, and we are not.
Never
repeating.
gonna happen. Never gonna happen. We're just gonna keep stepping in the same piece of shit.
Isn't that the point of learning history, so that you don't repeat the same shit?
That's what they teach you in history.
If anybody was listening.
It's like one history major being like, I told you.
I saw this coming.
But he's never working at a bank. It's like, why don't those history people work at the fucking bank? Like, why don't we put like a history, like every person in economics,
finance major should have
a minor in history. It's like, that seems pretty logical. Hey, every 20 year, like every 30 or so years, this 20% interest rate comes along. If you do this, it kind of does make sense, doesn't it? It's like now the 80s, the 50s, the 20s. Oh wow, it's happening.
Yeah, so I forget what it was, and I'm not going to really speak to it because I can't speak to it intelligently enough because I don't remember all of it.
Maybe
but
I can. Go for it.
It was something about history goes in like 20-year blocks or something like that, and it sort of you see the same ebb and flow throughout these segments of but it's like they show up differently, but essentially we hit the same peaks and valleys along almost the same time periods if you chunk things out in certain time frames. So
yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. Anyways, let's wrap this one up. Let's do this pretty quick, but I want to just summarize it, and we'll both have one last shot at the whole interest rates going up and what it means. It means that we're going to have less first-time home buyers in the market. We're going to have more conservative renovations. We're going to have a higher focus on using current space and making a better use of it. So cabinetry is going to be huge. If you are taking on the larger renovations, it's going to be a bit of savvy investment and thinking about a multi-res. I think that's going to be something that's going to be kind of trending between now and September when we have the next interest rate change with the Bank of Canada. So buckle up.
Yeah. Buckle up, bitches.
That's it. 5%.
You're in for a ride.
Gentle,
With gentle density.
Gentle density.
Might not be the ride you were looking for, but it'll be a ride.
On that note, end.